Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take the sources you suggest and really pull out the key stuff to get you informed fast.
And today, we're looking at something pretty fascinating.
Yeah, that Lex Fridman interview with Narendra Modi, India's prime minister.
Right. And it's a deep one. I mean, it covers so much ground. His personal life, spiritual side, global politics, India's future. You get a real sense of the person.
Exactly. And that's perfect for, the learner persona we keep in mind. Someone who wants the knowledge, the different angles, those aha moments, but without getting totally overwhelmed.
So we've done the heavy lifting, distilled it down. We're basically your guides through this quite dense material.
Okay, let's jump in. Where do we start? Maybe how Modi sees himself, his role?
Good place. He consistently talks about his strength not being his strength, but coming from 1.4 billion Indians. And their ancient culture, the whole Vedic tradition, Swami Vivekananda's ideas.
It's this idea of collective identity, isn't it?
Absolutely. He sees himself almost embodying that. This ancient wisdom. It probably shapes how he talks about self-reliance, India's unique path.
Yeah, I remember that line, shaking hands isn't just him, it's India shaking hands. That really frames his international stuff differently.
Precisely. And it links to how he describes India fundamentally peaceful. The land of Buddha, Gandhi, harmony over conflict.
He stresses that's like deep in the culture, not just a soundbite.
Right. But then you have to wonder, how does that square with, modern geopolitics, military power? It's a tension there.
Definitely something to keep in mind. Okay, but let's pivot to his background because that's, quite the story.
Oh yeah, the early life. Extreme poverty, he says, but he didn't feel poor.
Because that was all he knew. The no shoes example was vivid.
Exactly. No frame of reference for anything else. It suggests this maybe innate resilience, a different kind of baseline for hardship.
Yeah, builds a certain perspective, I guess.
And he contrasts that with, say, his later efforts with Pakistan, trying for peace, inviting them to his swearing in.
Only to face hostility, as he put it.
Right. But he still hopes, that wisdom will prevail. It's an interesting mix of realism and hope.
And even with all that power now, he says he welcomes criticism, calls it the soul of democracy.
Which is a strong statement for any leader.
He also had that message for young people about hope, no matter how dark the night.
Morning is bound to come.
Yeah. Fridman seemed quite taken with that too, and with Modi overall.
What were Fridman's takeaways?
Well, the sheer scale of Modi's life, obviously. Poverty to leading the biggest democracy, winning multiple times, trying to unite such diversity.
But also acknowledging the controversy, the decisive actions that some love, some criticize.
Right, and that world leaders see him as a potential peacemaker, someone who can talk to different sides. Fridman felt that's really needed right now.
Interesting. Did Fridman mention his personal impression during the talk? He did. He mentioned warmth, kindness, humor, but also this, intense focus. An inner and outer peace, he said.
And the fasting thing, that came up during the actual conversation.
Yeah, Modi was apparently 45 hours into a water-only fast. As a mark of honor for the discussion, Fridman noted.
Wow. Okay, that definitely warrants a closer look. Fasting.
It's a big part of the picture. In India, he explains, these religious traditions, they're woven into life. It's a whole philosophy for elevating, everything. Body, mind, soul.
So it's more than just not eating.
Much more. He sees it as cultivating discipline, finding balance. And it seems, for him, almost a tool for mental clarity.
How so?
He talked about heightened senses, like noticing the smell of water, if you can imagine.
Really? Heightened senses?
Yeah, and an accelerated thinking process, getting fresh ideas, new perspectives while fasting. He calls it a scientific process, actually.
Scientific?
Involving preparation, Ayurvedic practices, yoga, things to detoxify beforehand. It's not just stopping food cold turkey.
I see. So it's preparation, discipline, and devotion.
Yes, devotion and self-discipline. It helps him focus inward, he suggests.
And where did this start for him?
Childhood. He was inspired by Mahatma Gandhi's activism, specifically the cow protection movement. He tried fasting then as a kid and felt this new energy, this awareness.
And he stuck with it.
Decades, experimenting, refining it. He says it doesn't slow him down. Sometimes he even works more, and it helps him express his thoughts better.
That's counterintuitive.
It is. He mentions specific practices like chaturmas,
What's that?
an old tradition, just one meal in 24 hours during the monsoon season. And Navratri fasts, sometimes just hot water or maybe one type of fruit a day.
And he's done this for decades.
Over 50 years, he said. Apparently, he kept it pretty private until he became chief minister and then PM.
So leading a country while doing these intense fasts, that's something.
There's that story about President Obama, right? At the White House.
Oh yeah, the state dinner where Modi just had hot water.
And Obama apparently remembered it on the next visit. It really shows how central this practice is to him personally.
Okay, so these practices, this discipline, it seems rooted very early on. Let's go back to his childhood then, the environment he grew up in.
Right, Vadnagar, his hometown in Gujarat. Not just any town, it turns out.
Historically significant.
Hugely. Ancient history, a Buddhist learning center. He actually initiated excavations there as chief minister.
And they found proof?
Yeah, confirming the ancient past. Evidence of a city that's been continuously inhabited for maybe 2,800 years. Buddhist monks, different traditions living together. They're building a big museum there now.
So his own roots are tied to this very deep Indian history.
It seems that way. He talks about history not just being in books, but in the stones, the walls.
And yet his personal start was so humble. That small house, no windows.
Exactly. Extreme poverty by, modern standards. But again, that refrain, he didn't feel the burden because he didn't know no shoes, no problem in a way.
He mentioned his parents too, his mother's hard work, his father's discipline.
Very much so. Recalled his father's footsteps going to the temple daily, and his mother trying to shield the kids from the struggles.
The first pair of shoes story was quite touching.
Getting them from his uncle, cleaning them so carefully with chalk paste.
Yeah.
And his mother's focus on cleanliness, which he says he inherited the neat dressing.
Even ironing clothes with a heated copper pot. Resourceful.
Finds joy in simplicity, he says. No complaints.
And his mother's role in community care, using traditional remedies.
Yeah, seemed to instill that sense of service early on. He credits his parents, teachers, the whole environment for his values.
Which seems to feed directly into the advice he gives young people.
Definitely. That message of patience, self-confidence, the darkest night thing again. Seeing difficulties not as roadblocks, but as tests. Opportunities, even.
Shortcut will cut you short. I like that one. Perseverance.
Yeah, pour your heart into what you do. Enjoy the journey. Don't just focus on getting or becoming, but on doing.
And contribution, right. Use your abilities to grow and give back, and never stop learning.
Keep the inner student alive, he put it, and find contentment in giving. That seems to be a core theme.
It connects to that other really formative period he discussed, leaving home at 17.
Right, the 2 years wandering in the Himalayas, searching for purpose, truth.
Living like a yogi, minimalist, nomadic.
Inspired by reading about Swami Vivekananda and also Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, the warrior king. Testing his own limits, sleeping out in the cold.
Wow. What was his daily life like then?
Simple. Library, reading, washing clothes, swimming, but deeply drawn to Vivekananda's philosophy.
Any particular story?
Yeah, the one about Vivekananda praying to the goddess Kali. He couldn't bring himself to ask for material things, only spiritual knowledge. That apparently sparked Modi's focus on selfless giving.
And seeing service to people as service to God.
Exactly. Realizing the unity between the divine, Shiva, and all living beings. Serve them, serve God.
He also mentioned choosing to serve a fasting saint over going to a family wedding.
Yeah, another sign of his early priorities shifting towards service. And he admired soldiers too, serving the nation. It was all driven by this hunger to understand life.
Did he meet influential figures during this time?
Yes, saints at the Ramakrishna mission. Especially Swami at Mastananda Ji.
He was a key guide.
Seems so. The Swami apparently told him he had a greater purpose, pushed him to think. Is it about your own well-being or society's welfare?
So steering him towards service in the world.
Right. Even amidst all the wandering, the solitude, meeting ascetics, Modi described this inner restlessness. But the experience is shaped in meditation, rising early, cold baths, helping villagers after a disaster.
Constantly moving though, never staying put.
Until Swami at Mastananda helped channel that energy towards service, rather than, say, becoming a full monk, a sannyasi.
And Modi feels that core spiritual commitment is still there under the PM role.
That's what he says. Unwavering. Service has been the constant. He doesn't see a huge difference between a saint and a leader, in essence.
Okay, let's connect this to another major influence, the RSS.
The Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. Yes, he joined when he was just 8.
8 years old. What drew him in?
Patriotic songs, apparently, and a local man named Makoshi. But the core values stuck. Purposefulness, and seeing service to the nation as service to God.
It's a huge organization, right? Volunteer-based.
Massive. Nearing its 100th anniversary, he says it gave him direction, purpose. And he stresses its focus on societal contribution, not just politics.
Like what kind of projects?
He mentioned Seva Party, working in slums, Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram, helping tribal communities, setting up schools, Vidya Bharati in education.
And the labor union, the Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh.
Yeah, millions of members. He pointed out their slogan, "Workers unite the world, not workers of the world unite."
A subtle shift in ideology there, more about global unity.
Seems to be the implication. He portrays the RSS as working diligently, quietly for decades, building values. He sees it as giving him his life's purpose, complementing the spiritual foundation from the saints.
So RSS values spiritual guidance. How does this shape his idea of India?
He talks about India not just as a modern state, but as this ancient cultural identity, a civilization.
Despite the incredible diversity, languages, food, customs.
Exactly. He says there are these common threads underneath, stories everyone knows, like the Ramayana, rituals that invoke all of India's rivers, connecting people across regions.
He mentioned a specific ritual, making resolutions.
Yeah, invoking the universe right down to your local village and family deity. He sees that as a unifying thing, a living history. India's unity, he argues, was built on these cultural bonds long before administrative systems, pilgrimages, the sites Shankaracharya established.
Interesting. And how does Mahatma Gandhi fit into this view? Obviously a huge figure.
Immense respect. Shared background, being Gujarati. He admires Gandhi giving up comfort for India's freedom, his influence on everyone.
Living his principles, that was key for Modi, like Gandhi's focus on cleanliness.
Yes, practicing what you preach. And Gandhi's ability to awaken a whole nation, lead a mass movement based on truth involving everyone.
Transforming ordinary people into activists.
Right. The uniqueness of his methods, like the Salt March, Dandi March, Modi mentioned stories like Gandhi meeting the king in just a loincloth, that strength of character, his call for unity, empowering the common person.
So seeing Gandhi as a master of social change and participation.
Absolutely.
Now connecting that to his own role today, geopolitics, peacemaking, how does he see himself in relation to someone like Gandhi?
He's careful there. Says it's not a fair comparison. Gandhi's relevance is timeless. His own responsibility is to India, the nation comes first.
But not in an aggressive way.
No, he stresses that. It's about India standing equal, eye to eye, as he put it back in 2013. Not looking down on others, but not looking up either. Advocating for humanity's welfare, peace, brotherhood, one big family.
And his global initiatives reflect that.
He believes so. One sun, one world, one grid, one health. The G20 theme under India, one earth, one family, one future. Pushing renewable energy with the International Solar Alliance.
It's a message of interconnectedness.
Very much. The world's a small village. We're interdependent, need synchronization. He feels older organizations, like the UN, maybe haven't kept pace.
And India's role in this.
As a force for peace. Again, land of Buddha and Gandhi. He says Indians aren't hardwired for strife. They value harmony and are willing to mediate.
Like with Russia and Ukraine.
He mentioned India's good relations with both, believing talks are the only way. He sees now as an opportunity for that. India stands with peace. He insists it's not about neutrality for its own sake.
Okay, what about the relationship closer to home? India-Pakistan. That's always complex.
He acknowledges the shared history before partition, then the pain, the bloodshed. He expresses disappointment over the lack of harmony, the proxy wars.
Then terrorism.
He links it directly to Pakistan, calling it a global epicenter of turmoil, and says India has repeatedly urged them to abandon state-sponsored terrorism.
Despite his own efforts at outreach, the Lahore visit inviting them to the inauguration.
Which he says were met with hostility, betrayal. But again, that thread of hope, that wisdom prevails, that the Pakistani people want peace. He mentioned that first invitation was seen as a big gesture even back then.
It's a tough dynamic. On a lighter note, did sports come up? Cricket rivalry.
Briefly, he acknowledged sports bring people together. On India-Pakistan cricket, he just quipped that recent results speak for themselves.
What about other sports?
Mentioned football's growing popularity, progress in men's and women's teams. Recalled a village called Mini Brazil, known for football, sees it as a unifier teaching team spirit.
Let's shift to another relationship, his friendship with Donald Trump. How did he describe that?
Fondly, actually. Recall the Howdy Modi event in Houston, the huge crowd. Trump came, listened, even sat below while Modi spoke.
A sign of respect.
That's how Modi interpreted it. And their spontaneous walk around the stadium, ditching security. He saw it as mutual trust, Trump's boldness.
Yeah.
He respects Trump's resilience, his America-first focus, seeing it similar to his own nation first.
Did he comment on media portrayals?
Yeah. Suggested they often get in the way of personal connection. He shared a story from their first White House meeting.
What happened?
Trump apparently broke protocol, gave him a personal tour, no notes, just sharing American history. Modi seemed impressed by that connection and noted Trump still calls him a friend.
Trump called Modi a great negotiator. How did Modi respond?
Humbly. Said he just puts India's interests first, but positively.
Did he mention meeting other U.S. figures?
Yeah, he felt Trump seemed very prepared for a potential second run, clear roadmap, strong team. Also mentioned meeting Tulsi Gabbard, Vivek Ramaswamy. Elon Musk described the vibe as almost family-like.
He knows Musk from way back.
Since his chief minister days, apparently. We talked about various things. Musk was excited about the Doge mission, Modi recalled.
Interesting. Okay, let's talk governance. Reforms in India since 2014. What did he highlight?
A big focus on cleaning house, tackling deep-rooted issues, removing like 100 million fake names from government benefit schemes.
100 million, that's huge.
Massive savings through direct benefit transfer DBT, getting money straight to people. The GM portal for government buying, like an Amazon for the state, for transparency.
Cutting red tape, too.
Yeah, getting rid of thousands of unnecessary compliance rules, old laws, trying to make governance less inefficient.
What about the relationship with China and President Xi?
He framed it historically first. Ancient civilizations, long relationship contributing to the world. India and China used to be like over half the world's GDP.
Strong cultural ties. Buddhism going from India to China.
Right. Centuries with no real major conflict. His focus now, he says, is making sure differences don't become disputes. Dialogue's key for a stable relationship.
But there are tensions, the border issues in 2020.
He acknowledged that, yes. But Remerson mentioned recent meeting with Xi led to things returning towards normal at the border, working to get back to pre-2020 status. Cooperation is vital, he stressed. 21st century is Asia's century-healthy competition, not conflict, is the goal.
And avoiding wider global conflict. How does he see that?
He noted COVID showed everyone's limits, but the chance for unity wasn't really seized. The world's more fragmented now. Wars make it worse.
Modern war is different.
Yeah, beyond just resources. Conflicts in every domain, cyber, space, information, and international bodies like the UN are less relevant, he feels.
So the answer is?
Cooperation over conflict, development over expansionism. We're all interdependent. People everywhere are worried, hoping for peace.
Okay, the interview also touched on a very difficult and controversial period, the 2002 Gujarat riots. How did he address that?
He acknowledged it was a terrible time, violence between Hindus and Muslims. He pointed out that India's Supreme Court investigated twice and upheld his non-involvement.
Did he provide context?
Yes, he mentioned the preceding year or so was very tense, nationally hijacking, attacks on the Red Fort, Parliament, 9/11 happening globally. He'd only just become chief minister in late 2001, dealing with a major earthquake aftermath. No prior government experience.
And the timing relative to the riots.
He'd literally just become a state representative for the first time in February 2002, and the horrific Godhra train burning incident happened days later, sparking the riots. He called it a tragedy for everyone, emphasized everyone wants peace.
What about the perception it was the worst riot?
He called that misinformation, saying Gujarat had frequent riots before 2002, citing data. He framed 2002 as a flashpoint, but one thoroughly investigated by the judiciary, which found him innocent despite political opposition. He said those responsible face justice.
And the situation since then?
That was his main point. No major riots in Gujarat in the 22 years after 2002. He attributed this to shifting away from vote bank politics towards development for all, trust, collective effort, aspiration over appeasement. Gujarat transformed, he argued.
How does he handle criticism generally then, especially around events like that?
He repeats that he welcomes it, calls it democracy's soul, quotes scripture about keeping critics close for improvement. He actually wishes for more sharp, well-researched criticism.
He distinguishes between criticism and allegations.
Right. Genuine criticism involves study, facts, analysis. Allegations are shortcuts, accusations without proof, he feels. He says he welcomes the former, but just keeps working amidst the latter, which he sees as false.
He used an analogy, the fly and the bee.
Yeah, the fly spreads dirt, the bee collects nectar, but it has a powerful sting for wrongdoing. He wants journalism to be like the bee, impactful, truthful.
Okay, shifting gears again. Winning elections in the world's largest democracy, how does that even work?
He talked about his long political involvement, mostly behind the scenes, first organizing, strategy, then 24 years of holding office, earning trust in Gujarat and nationally. feels a deep duty to deliver,
And his government's approach.
ensuring welfare reaches everyone equally, no discrimination. Governance focused on people's well-being, not just winning the next election.
He used almost spiritual language, didn't he?
Yeah, revering the nation as divine, people as its manifestation, him as a servant or priest. Living among the people is one of them. His work ethic promise, if you work hard, I will work harder.
No conflicts of interest, he mentioned that too.
Right, no family or friends benefiting. And the power of his party, the BJP, with millions of volunteers committed to India, that grassroots trust is key, he believes.
The sheer logistics of an Indian election must be mind-blowing.
He seemed glad Lex asked about that. The scale is staggering. 2024 election, 980 million registered voters. That's like twice North America, more than the EU.
And how many actually voted?
646 million, in intense heat. Over 1 million polling booths. Huge manpower. Over 2,500 political parties.
Wow. And media, technology.
900 plus news channels round the clock, 5,000 daily newspapers. Tech adoption is fast, even in villages. Yet results come out in a day.
How do they ensure everyone can vote? Remote areas.
Commitment is huge. Helicopters to reach remote spots, the highest altitude booth in the world, even a booth set up for just one voter in a forest. He sees India's election commission as a global gold standard, worthy of university case studies. The political awareness is deep.
So given all the scale, the mandates, how does he view power and corruption?
He pushes back on the word powerful, prefers humble servant, prime servant. Service is the guide. He says he didn't enter politics for power games, but to serve. Focus is on productivity, positive change.
Does it get lonely at the top?
He says he never feels lonely, believes in 1+1, himself plus the Almighty. Service to people is service to God, Vivekananda again. Nation is divine. He stays engaged, finds peace within, partly from that time in the Himalayas.
He gave an example from the pandemic.
Yeah, managing remotely, virtual meetings, but also personally calling older party workers, just checking in, staying connected.
And his work ethic, does he think he works harder than others?
No, he explicitly said he doesn't. Acknowledged farmers, soldiers, laborers, mothers work incredibly hard too. His responsibilities just drive him. He referred back to his 2014 promises.
What were they?
Never fall behind in hard work, never act with bad intentions, never do anything for personal gain. Says he still lives by that, inspired by serving 1.4 billion people.
He mentioned inspiration from the mathematician Ramanujan. That seemed interesting.
Yeah, deep respect. Saw a link between science and spirituality there. Ramanujan felt his ideas came from the goddess he worshipped.
So discipline beyond just effort.
Full devotion, immersion. Modi stressed being open to different kinds of knowledge. He distinguished between information just carrying facts and knowledge, which is deeper, comes from processing, reflection.
How does he make decisions then? With all this input, complexity.
Several factors. His extensive travel across India before becoming PM gave him ground-level understanding, having no personal baggage or interests tied up.
A simple test?
Yeah, country first. Will it harm the nation? And Mahatma Gandhi's test. Think of the poorest person. Plus, he stays very connected, gets info from everywhere, keeps a learner's mindset, asks questions, plays devil's advocate.
Does he workshop ideas?
Informally, yeah. Shares them with trusted people for feedback. But once he feels a decision is right, he acts decisively, quickly.
Any example?
COVID decisions. Resisting pressure to just copy other countries. Prioritizing preventing hunger, social unrest. Focusing on India's unique situation. Resulted in lower inflation than many places, he argues.
Takes risks.
Willing to, for the country. And takes ownership. Doesn't blame others. Admits he can be wrong, but insists intentions are good. That builds trust, he thinks.
Okay, final big topic. Artificial intelligence. AI in India.
Right. He mentioned a speech he gave in France, highlighting India's huge talent pool. Said AI development would be incomplete without India.
That's a bold claim.
He knew it was, but felt it needed saying. Stressed cooperation. Agreed with an analogy. If AI only learns from right-handed data, it misses the left-handed reality. India brings that different perspective.
So AI needs collaboration. What's India doing practically?
Developing AI for specific uses. Creating a unique marketplace model for GPU access, spreading the computing power widely. There's been a big mindset shift.
Like with 5G.
Exactly. People thought India was behind. Then it had the fastest rollout globally. The engineering talent is vast. He told an anecdote about a US exec realizing this.
And AI is ultimately about human intelligence.
Which India's youth has in abundance, he argues. He also praised Indian tech leaders in the US, Pichai, Nadella, others, for respecting both their birth country and where they work, striving for excellence, upholding values.
Wow. Okay, that was a lot. We've really unpacked quite a bit from that conversation.
Definitely, from the personal and spiritual, like fasting, his childhood.
To the big picture stuff, governance, decision-making, India's global role, AI.
It gives you, the listener, the learner, a solid grounding in the key takeaways from that interview, a shortcut to being informed, hopefully.
Yeah, hitting those surprising details, the core philosophies.
Absolutely. Covered a lot of ground without you needing to listen to the whole multi-hour original.
So maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on, something we didn't explicitly spell out but emerged.
Go for it.
Well, notice how often those principles from ancient Indian philosophy, those cultural values, seem to underpin Modi's approach, whether it's leadership, global challenges, even technology.
That's true. It's a consistent thread.
So consider what that might suggest, about the future of international relations, especially as the world becomes more multipolar. What role might these kinds of deep-rooted civilizational perspectives play?
That's a fascinating connection to think about further. Definitely something to ponder.